Hello, I'm Stephen. I'm a friend of Rupert's. He's done an impossible thing. He's asked me to make a very personal video first thing in the morning, which is, as anyone probably knows, is a complete nightmare. And maybe we should have done it last night when I could have had a beer in my hand. But anyway, it's a cup of tea instead. Here we go. He'd like me to share some thoughts about travel with a view to speaking to young people. And I have travelled a fair bit, as he has done, as I hope you will do. And so here are some thoughts, maybe wrapped in a couple of stories. But like I say, this is going to be a one-take wonder, so let's see how it goes. First thing I'd say is adventure. The word is adventure, so life is an adventure. You're super lucky to be on this planet. I've never bothered working it out, but we're all 1 in a million unlikely chances to exist. The nature of how our parents get together, so we've got this one chance. So I think Eminem said it well, you've got this one shot and you've got to take it. So that's one of the reasons for sort of trying to be motivated and making the most of your life. And adventure is a key word because adventures are fun. We're watching them on the TV and in movies the whole time. Well, why not have your own adventure is what I would probably suggest. And people are great, and generally the adventure brings you in touch with people, and people make your adventures better. So the two things marry up quite nicely. I think when I was about 7 or 8, home was boring, I wanted to get out, and I grabbed a few friends and we went on what we called a hike. And so we went hiking off. We probably walked, I don't know, 5-6 miles into the South Downs, and it was beautiful. There's a place called Devil's Dyke, and we went on an adventure. So we had a sandwich, maybe we had a bottle of pop, and we walked off. But what was exciting is we were walking on roads that we'd never walked on before, and then down pathways we'd never walked down before, and then into a wood or forest that we'd never seen before. And I remember we did a circuit and then walked home. I don't think we told any of our parents where we were going, which is probably irresponsible, or maybe we told one. That's the caveat, isn't it? So we just had this massive adventure, and we were rolling around, sliding down muddy banks and all this sort of thing, and got back 6 hours after we'd left, I suppose. But I remember I wrote in a diary the next day just how exciting it was, and all my friends at school were really energised, and we're like, God, that was brilliant. It lit in me a desire to go places I'd never been before, where you needed a map and where you were reading road signs that you'd never seen before, and certainly no parents involved. So that started it, that lit the touch paper. Next thing, and this is probably the first story, Rupert's always been a little bit interested in how I started overseas travel, and this is beyond going on school trips or school exchanges, which please do, because it's great for learning languages if you're given the opportunity. Grab those with both hands, and make friends with your pen pals, by the way, because you can visit them when the school's not bothered about you doing it in the summer and such like. So my first forays into Europe were, on my own, were after doing street drawing in the UK and finding out that you could make a decent bit of money, and that's how I would do it with a friend. So we would take the train up to London. I don't know why we went to London, but we did. Covent Garden, Leicester Square, and we would set our stall up, and we were quite handy at drawing. That helps, but there'll be other skills you can have. You might be a singer, a guitarist. There are other ways of doing it, busking of course, but our thing was art, and we would draw a quick Michelangelos on the street. And people found this attractive, and then you would get drops, and you'd definitely have a hat out, and we'd save a bit of money that way. And we thought, wow, this was a bit of fun, and people seemed to enjoy it. We certainly enjoyed it, and it was an adventure again, because you've left home and then you go back home with your pockets full of change. So I thought, well, why not go to Paris and do it there, and I thought that was a good idea. I also was doing a fair bit of hitchhiking then, because there's no extra money. So hitchhiking was the way back then. You put your thumb out, met nice people, obviously do it with a bit of care. You have to think ahead. Probably that's the subject of a whole other video, is hitchhiking and how best to do it. And Rupert's son is doing these videos about it now, and actually I think that's quite telling, and I would recommend you watch one of those. But back onto my hitchhiking. There was never any money. So one of the fun things I used to do was a bit of a challenge to myself, and I'd literally have a £5 note in my back pocket, and the challenge was, right, where can I get with this fiver? And of course I would say, well, I need the fiver at the other end really, so I'm not going to spend it now. So hitching out of London down, I don't know if it's the A2, M2, similar, M20, can't remember, into Dover, and then back in those days you could get lifts on trucks. They're a bit more hesitant, or very hesitant about doing it now. Hitch across the channel, and then hitch on to Paris. Arrive in Paris, still with this fiver intact, a little bit hungry of course, and thinking, right, focus. And then I remember I would use this fiver, if I still had it intact, to buy my chalks. I don't know why I didn't take my own chalks, but this was another thing that appealed to Rupert. So I'd pop into the art supply store, offer them, you know, maybe, I don't know, back then it was francs, offer them a few francs and say, can I have some of your cut-off chalks? And they would say, go on then. And so I'd get these white, brown and black, because they're pretty standard basic colours. When I had more money, I'd afford to get some more. And I would set up outside the Louvre, do a lovely Michelangelo or Da Vinci again, right where everyone was queuing to get in the Louvre. They've changed the layout now, so this won't work for you now, but it worked very well for me then, because you've got this captive audience of people outside the museum. And of course the drops are coming, and I think sometimes people are very generous anyway, and they'd probably feel for you and drop a coin in whether they liked your art or not. But people did like my art, and I found it's a very good way of generating work for rainy days. So people would see you doing that on the floor, and they'd sometimes say, hey, my friend, can you do this on the wall? And I would say, yes, of course. I always found that a funny question, you know, why would I be able to do it on the floor and not on a wall? But anyway, and those would be the rainy day jobs. So on a rainy day, I remember I was, on one rainy day, actually, I was drawing on the metro platform at the Louvre. You won't get very long on that, they send the security down. But I was there long enough for one hotel manager to say, I would like you to do a nice mural on my wall in my hotel. And so that was a nice job. Like I say, for rainy days. Then on the sunny days, you'd be there, you get all covered in chalk dust, Conte dust. You'd be wiping your face, you'd be all dirt. People have been very generous, you'd have had a good day. And generally, I'd say you might make £80, £90. And this is back when I was a kid, so that's obviously quite good money. Certainly a lot better than the fiver that I had just spent on the chalks. Now that was the nice moment, because then you felt like, right, well, I've done something. I would wash my hands in the Seine, I'd go straight to a cafe, I'd give all this change, 100 quid's worth of change or 80 quid's worth of change, to the waiter, who normally a bit sniffy, but they wanted this change, so they loved me, always loved me. And then you get it changed up into notes, and then I'd immediately, this is the first thing I'd do, I'd immediately go to my chosen hotel, lovely hotel, near the Quartier Latin. I can recommend it, it's called Hotel Nesle, that's spelled Nesle, lovely hotel filled with murals. And I think because the murals, the art, they kind of held a soft spot for me, so even if there was no room, they'd find a corner for me, which was lovely and sweet. But I would pay up front in cash, that means everyone's happy, and you don't have to worry about it then. Lovely breakfast with them in the morning, and then the next day, start again. And I would generally, my rule was leave England with a fiver and see how long it'd last. Well, of course, when you're positive or having fun or having this adventure, the weeks roll on and you're just having a great time, and you might even go home with some savings. That's the plan.